It is Game Points, a special edition tonight, subbing in for Game Night Montreal and Eric Thomas. I am Matthew Ross. We're here till 11 o'clock tonight. Matthew Words on Twitter if you want to tweet at me. Still to come tonight, Brian Compton of NHL.com. We'll talk some PK Subban contract with Howard Bloom of Sports Business News. But right now, we're very pleased to welcome in from Sports Illustrated's Major League Baseball coverage. He is also the originator of the JAWS methodology, which helps to determine the candidacy, or at least the worthwhile candidacy of Major League Baseball players for the Hall of Fame. You can check him out as well on twitter.com/J_Jaffe, Jaffe. It is Jay Jaffe. Hey, Jay, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am very well. I forgot to mention one of the best mustaches in the biz, too.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah. It's an odd one. Now, Jay, wanted to get to a couple of your recent articles, and certainly the one that's quite timely is the one about the waiver deadline at the end of August, and several players could still be picked up. But traditionally, we don't see a lot of these moves, right? It's only one or two kind of notable players.
Well, we do see some, and it happens now and then. A lot of times it's below the radar deals, not big blockbusters. It's very hard to pull off a blockbuster because every player involved has to pass through waivers and go unclaimed by other teams. So it's kind of a logistical nightmare to get stuff like this done. But we do see deals of significance, and it's especially something that happens when big contract players are moved because other teams don't want to risk claiming that player and being stuck with the entire contract, as happened to Alex Rios back in, I think it was 2011, when the White Sox were left holding the bag on him when he had struggled with the Blue Jays.
Jay Jaffe joining us here on the program. Now, my producer Marco Polo is a big Pittsburgh Pirates fan, and obviously it's been a tough year as compared to the exuberance that we saw down the stretch for them last year, breaking that playoff drought. But one of the things that he's been lamenting for months is the fact that they didn't really get another starter in that rotation. Because of their unique position in sort of on the fringe of that wild card chase, is there a possibility of them, do you think, maybe picking up one of those pitchers because they will be ahead on the waiver wire of some of those teams that, in front of them, like St. Louis, Milwaukee?
Yeah, it's very possible, and actually, they're a perfect example of a team that did get deals done last year. I mean, they got Marlon Byrd and Justin Morneau during the August waiver period, and did a nice little job of upgrading their team, especially with the addition of Byrd. I would expect they could be aggressive, not only in putting in claims for possible deals for themselves, but in blocking those other teams. That logistically, that's the way it works. It goes in reverse order of record within leagues. So, any National League pitcher, especially whom a team tries to trade, it's going to have to pass through them before it gets to the other teams.
Elsewhere, in terms of some of the teams that have made their moves and expect to compete, we're watching in studio here Detroit and the Yankees do battle here, still 0-0 in the third inning. But Jay, as a guy who looks at stats, I mean, it's just got to be mind-boggling to see 3 consecutive Cy Young Award winners that the Tigers have that are going against the Yankees in one series. Scherzer, Price, and Verlander. That's just unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, although I think it would be a little bit more impressive if Verlander were actually pitching up to the standard that won him that award. He has struggled this year, ERA in the high 4s and velocity down, strikeout rate way down. If all 3 of those guys were at top strength, I think the Tigers could be pretty close to unbeatable. But as it is, they're going to give some other teams a chance because Verlander's not in his best, and of course that bullpen remains a problem.
You saw the Oakland Athletics go out and get John Lester. What did you think of that trade and the value Boston got back? Of course, you can't replace great pitching. That's the problem. But that said, they did get a pretty dynamic player in return.
Yeah, I thought it was an aggressive deal by the A's. Not only did they further augment their rotation after adding Jeff Samardzija back in early July, but they kept Lester away from their top competitors as well. I think he was somebody who could have helped a lot of teams. Giving up Yoenis Cespedes is a significant price to pay. Although that said, Cespedes is got kind of a low on base percentage and has a hard time staying in the lineup due to injuries. So they only had him under control for one more year after this year before he basically had to hit free agency due to the specifics of his contract. I think it was a good deal for both sides. I think Boston gets a guy who could still possibly break out, who's already been a pretty good player. The A's also got Johnny Gomes back, and they've liked him before. He had a good season with them back in 2012. Was a big part of that division-winning team, renowned as a great clubhouse guy. So, I think there was something to be said for both sides.
All right. Elsewhere, the LA Dodgers didn't really do much at that deadline. Were you surprised?
Not tremendously. I mean, I think they need to make some moves with regards to their bullpen and in getting another starting pitcher. But that's the kind of stuff that can get done in August, particularly for a team that's able to take on seemingly unlimited amounts of salary. The Dodgers didn't want to give up any of their three top prospects for a guy like Price or Lester, so it didn't seem like they had any real urgency to make a move.
Jay Jaffe joining us from Sports Illustrated. If you go to SI.com right now, click on MLB, you'll see an article up on by Jay on a Cubs prospect, Javier Baez. Who is this guy?
He is one of the top five or so prospects in the game. A guy who until recently had been playing shortstop at the Cubs' AAA stop, but he really struggled at the start of the year. Through May 15th, he had an OPS below 500 while striking out 38% of the time. But since then, he's turned that around, hit 20 home runs since the middle of May and 9 in the past month or so. The Cubs are moving him to second base. He's basically the vanguard of this great wave of prospects that Theo Epstein and company have been waiting on, and they're going to play him at second base alongside Starlin Castro at shortstop, with Anthony Rizzo at first base, and eventually they're probably going to bring up Chris Bryant, their third baseman, and they've with the Baez move, they're moving Arismendi Alcantara, whom they brought up a few weeks ago, into the center field, and so this bounty of prospects is really changing the face of the Cubs.
But again, they'll have another losing season and probably next year as well, just based on that youth. But you're right. I mean, that's a heck of a way to build from within. And those poor fans. I mean, this is year after year after year, right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I do trust I do trust the Epstein and Hoyer regime to bear fruit. It's a little tough to sit through, but geez, it's the Cubs. They've been sitting through this kind of stuff forever. What's another year? I don't think there's any sense in rushing it just to get a 70-win field team on the field instead of a 65-win team. They traded away Samardzija. That was a big move for them. They've made some other trades. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep dealing through August here, but the future is coming for them.
All right, finally, we'd be remiss if we didn't ask you about the latest Baseball Hall of Fame voting changes, obviously affecting a popular Montreal figure in Tim Raines, somebody who obviously we're quite affectionate about. And I've always said, Jay, I don't know if you buy into this, you're more of a numbers guy than myself, but I've always said that one of the big things that he's being held back about is the fact that he never got to 3,000 hits. Well, if you're a leadoff guy and your hits plus walks equals more than the hits plus walks of Tony Gwynn, isn't it almost like they're holding that against him, that he did his job, got on base, and whether it was a walk or a hit, it's being held against him?
Yeah, I've been writing about Raines for several years in that context. Gwynn got the batting titles and the 3,000 hits, the shiny stuff, and Raines got on base every bit as well, and certainly advanced himself better with the stolen bases. That kind of negates a bit of the power differential between the two players. Gwynn had more doubles. Both outstanding ball players, and there's really no reason one should be outside of the hall and while the other one's in there. The new rule change really, really hurts Reigns. Instead of having 8 more years of eligibility to get to that 75%, he's now got only 3 more years. Then his candidacy will be kicked to the expansion era committee. It's a tough blow because this is a guy who had been building momentum, but a strong wave of players coming from the last few years who's hit the ballot kind of knocked him back below 50% after getting just above it a couple of years ago. We've got strong candidates coming this year: Pedro Martinez, Randy Johnson, John Smoltz, and next year as well. It's going to be tough for him to make that headway, and I really feel for him.
He is Jay Jaffe, J_Jaffe on Twitter, or you can check out SI.com and click on the MLB coverage. Jay, thank you so much for chatting with us. Really appreciate your time.
Great. Thanks a lot.
All right, that's Jay Jaffe of Sports Illustrated. It is Game Points.